What if motherhood could cut off all the bad parts of us? What if it could start paring down our selfishness? What if it pared down our unrealistic expectations? What if it could pare down all of the things? Our kids are mirrors holding up to us going, what? Mom, why are you so mad? Because... Welcome to the I Am Mother of the Year podcast, where we equip and encourage moms just like you to move from isolation, fear, comparison, and chaos to community, compassion, peace, and freedom. We're so glad you're here. Hey guys, I'm Lisa.
And I'm Jen, and this is the I Am Mother of the Year podcast.
Yes, and motherhood is death by 1,000 cuts. And that's a good thing.
That sounds so intense.
Stay with me now, stay with me. Yes. It's a good thing.
Okay.
But it is true. Death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah. What kind of cuts?
All the cuts. Okay, let's just start with the story.
Okay.
One day, long ago, not that long ago, I was standing at the kitchen table, chopping food, cutting the children's food. And I'm it was the perfect storm of choosing all the foods that need to be cut in one meal.
Yes.
So you can't have corn. Obviously I have to have carrots or green beans or something that had to be cut. And then it was string cheese, cut and cut.
Yes.
And then hot dogs, cut and cut. And I'm
oh my God.
All I do is cut their food. That's all I do. That's my whole life.
1,000 cuts.
1,000 cuts.
Okay, I can really relate because I have a teething toddler who just started baby food or table food.
Yeah.
And I'm that transition was really hard for me because I'm wait, what? I'm used to just open, spoon, feed. Good. Towards the end, she was feeding herself, pouch. Now I have to dice.
Oh, yeah.
And chop all your food and
Oh, yeah.
pieces.
At that point, you're not cutting. You're dicing.
Dicing.
Yeah.
Yes. So I feel I have so many cuts.
Death by 2,000 cuts.
Oh my gosh.
I literally, that day I stood there, and I don't remember the surrounding circumstances or whatever, but I remember the moment going, I don't think I'm going to make it through today. All I do is cut their food. Is this my life now? I'm a food cutter. I'm a food cutter. That's what I do. If you had to time block every part of my day, I cut food. I cut food for not a living.
This feels like expectation versus reality. Oh, you didn't know that you were signing up for this when you decided, let's have a baby. Fast forward. Chop, 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 chop.
It's exhausting.
Yeah.
It's just one of the many parts of motherhood that's totally exhausting.
Yes.
And so then I'm there's something in here, and I process really well when I write. So I sat down and I was I'm chopping the carrots and chopping the grapes and chopping the green beans, and I'm cutting.
Yes.
Death by 1,000 cuts.
Which can I also say really fast, just to add salt in the wound for me, is when we're all trying to have family dinner and family conversations, that my dream, my expectation is we're gonna all cut our own piece and then take a bite. Steak, meat, we're just cutting and eating and sharing together. No, it's you take this kid, I'll take this kid, chop, chop, chop. Now our food's cold. Oh, you need a smaller piece. You can't even eat.
No, you don't eat.
In synchronized fashion. No, it's chop, chop, eat, switch. It's just, I'm this is not what I desire. This is not my expectation.
And that is death by 1,000 cuts. And here's why I say this is a good thing. Because what you just said, your expectation, so now you have this disappointment. There's a little bit of selfishness in there, if I can just be blunt.
Yes.
Because you want this to go this way.
Yeah.
And that's what motherhood does to you. It cuts that. It cuts off. What if motherhood could cut off all the bad parts of us? What if it could start paring down our selfishness? what if it like pared down our unrealistic expectations? Like, what if it could pare down all of the things? Like, our kids are mirrors holding up to us going, like, what? Mom, why are you so mad? Because, and then you have to have a reason.
Yeah.
And that's when you see yourself in the mirror and go, but what if motherhood could just help shave that part off? Just cut it a little, right?
They're good cuts.
They're good cuts.
It's good to cut your children's food so they don't choke. And it's also good that your kids are helping to refine you in the process and cutting off the ugly and the bad parts.
Absolutely.
I love that. So you processed, wrote, discovered this, and it's one of my favorite blogs that you've written.
Aww.
So much so, we have a big portion of it. Because I was like, why recreate the wheel? Like, this is so good. You said it so beautifully.
Thank you. I'm like, yes, I did.
Yes, it was amazing. So I wanted to just read through some of that.
Yeah.
We just did this not long ago with the Frozen 2 series, right? Like, we read the lyrics, you bounce back and forth, we talk. I'm like, I feel like we could just do that again. This one is too important to miss. That I want to do it justice and I want to.
Let's do it.
Okay.
Do it justice.
All right. So as you're processing, you're talking about the death, what the death by 1,000 cuts is. Death to our bodies, death to our momentum. I feel that. Death to our schedules. I'm just going to leave my hand for that one. Death to our selfishness.
Yeah.
Our need for control and our freedom. Death to ourselves.
Yeah.
That's the death we're talking about. And then your next paragraph is, and that's a really good thing. When we allow the death cuts to kill the ugly, selfish parts that need to go, the parts that get frustrated at bedtime because we know the second they're asleep, it's finally our time. We've talked about that. The parts that get anxious. Did you write this about me? I think you did, probably. Me and mine. The parts that get anxious when we're running 5 minutes late because of a poop emergency and every passing second feels like an hour. Yes.
Yes.
The parts that reveal themselves anytime our kid asks, why are you so mad? Those are the parts that having tiny humans to live with and raise into incredible adults are dying one cut at a time. I'll take that death by 1,000 cuts every single time if it means that I'm learning more patience, kindness, and real love. I'll take that death because I know that the moments where I have to choose between snuggling my kid and moving my arm that went numb 25 minutes ago and slowly slip between my fingers. Death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
Kill the bad stuff.
Right, just cut off the bad stuff. And we're so resistant to it because I think lots of times those are the parts that we resent.
Yeah.
Like, no, newsflash, this is about me.
Yes.
This is about me and how I feel, and I want to control the situation, and I want to control you, and I want to, like, everything we're trying to accomplish as mothers, because we're go, 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 go all the time, we feel like we are marching onward, and we don't have time to slow down, and nothing needs to come off because, oh my gosh, what would we do? What would we do if I can't control the situation? Then who's in control? Is the kid in control? Like, no, we can't control each other. We've talked about that. Like, it's okay to let your kids raise the mirror to you and say,
are you happy with this the way that it is?
Yeah,
Would you like to improve a little bit?
Can we take a look at this just real fast? And that's the voice of God, and that's the voice of the sweet, wonderful conviction. And that's not the voice of condemnation, so there's a difference between the voice of condemnation, which is from the devil, and it's vague, and it points to you, and it's mean, and it leads to despair. And then there's this voice of conviction that probably both pop up when the mirror comes up, in those situations that we don't really want to look at, but like we are forced to because they're happening.
Yeah.
Like that voice of conviction comes in and says, hey, why are you so mad? Like, can we take a look at this? Like, what if we just cut that part off?
Because this is a moment. This is a memory with your family.
Yeah.
And you could choose to be mad and crazy and ruin this moment, or you could choose to be present and to be your best self.
Right.
And create a moment.
Yeah,
memory.
which is so hard.
Yeah.
It's so hard to do. And it's okay. Like, it's okay if you get mad. Like, this is the anti-striving podcast.
Yes,
okay,
it happens.
This is not just another thing to do.
No.
But this is more about the perspective of allowing the cuts.
It's gonna happen. Now, what do you do when it happens?
What do you do about it? Do you grow more resentment, or do you let that part be cut off and go, okay, yeah, good. I'm glad I learned from that. My kids are learning because they're watching me grow and become more healthy.
Yeah.
Like, let's take that death by 1,000 cuts any day of the week.
Yes, that good kind of death.
The
by
good death. Yes.
And so in the blog, there's a shift, right? You were writing and you're like, oh, but wait a minute.
Yeah, wait, we're not anti-cutting.
Right. This says, but here's the part I think many of us get wrong in the whole dying process. We end up killing the parts of us that were never meant to die.
Ugh.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, we do.
Now you have a problem.
Looks like you have a problem.
The best parts of us that we can't focus on because of our kids, we bury. The uniqueness with which we were created, we mask. The dreams of one day I'll pursue that, we slay. What a good writer. Oh my gosh. The beautiful, this is the best part.
Listen to this line. Say it into that camera.
The beautiful, glorious identity we could still have outside of motherhood, we lead to the slaughter.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh! You co-wrote this with the Holy Spirit?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because this is where I get really passionate, and maybe I need to get more passionate about, like, let's cut off the bad stuff. But, like, I'm so passionate about helping you realize that you are cutting off the best parts of yourself when you choose motherhood as the crowning part of your life.
Your only identity.
The kid-obsessed culture that we're in right now needs to shift. That's why we're on this couch. One of many reasons and one of many conversations we're willing to have first.
Yeah.
Because it's so important. You have an identity outside of motherhood. Motherhood is this beautiful layer of who you are, but it is not who you are.
It's not your sole identity. And to me, like, the idea of balance always comes to mind when we talk about if you're on this side of the spectrum or this side, like, either extreme is going to be extreme and unhealthy. Let's meet in the middle and have conversations about what a balance looks like.
Right, exactly. And so it's like, man, we try to, like, just, it's so, it makes me so crazy. Because listen, here's what we do. We have to rise to every occasion.
Yeah.
You know, as a mother, you have to rise to every occasion. And so then you change 7 times before you go to a play date because you know that the mom that you're meeting, or maybe the mom that the friend of the friend is bringing, is going to look like she just stepped out of a magazine, right? So you change 7 times because you can't show up looking like you actually look.
No, leggings and an athletic top.
Right.
Did you work out? No.
No, I chased my toddler. Does that count?
I'm
yes,
running-
it does.
I'm running errands. They don't call it running for no reason.
Hello. Right, but it's like those types of things when we put up the front, instead of, like, we cut off our uniqueness, we cut off of our time and our priorities, and that's the hardest thing for me to cope with. Literally, I said cope, and I mean it. When we start cutting off our true identities because we put our kids in place of our identities, we become who they need us to be. We become who we want them to be. We become, like, we push all of our hopes and our dreams and everything that we couldn't accomplish before we became mothers, we push it onto them. And then we say, you go do this. It's your time now. My job is to make sure you succeed. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But guess what? That's not your only job. What if I told you God has a job for you to show up in the world?
Outside of your motherhood.
Outside
Again,
of
that's
motherhood.
just one of your roles. What about your husband? How are you as a wife? If you consume all of motherhood, this is my only label, my only identity.
Oh, yeah.
How are you as a friend, as a daughter?
Right.
Well, no, because this is it.
Right. And then that posture is exactly what it is.
Yes.
We hold so tight to this
Yeah.
that we just can't imagine a life lived outside of our identity as a mother.
Yeah.
But somewhere deep inside, there exists a pre-baby you who's like, hey,
Remember me?
yeah, hey. Like, you don't have to go back to who she was. Like, because, like we said, motherhood cuts off all of these
Ugly.
the bad, the selfishness, all of that. Don't go back, but don't forget. Like, God created you first and uniquely and perfectly with work to do. He deposited everything you need inside of you to do this holy work.
You already
Whatever
have it.
the work looks like, it's already in there. Don't cut that off. Don't squelch that and hide it because now your work is your kids and your work is your kids and your work is your kid. No. Yes and no.
You're not, don't lose your identity.
It's the balance. And that is, I think part of it is we just need to take a minute and just focus on when's the last time you asked yourself, like, what do I want? When's the last time you asked yourself, what do I want? When it's not coming down to like a food choice.
Last night, I was like, okay,
Whoa!
I want to prep for this day of recording. I want to like really chew on the topic and like spend some time praying and thinking about that. I want to do that, which means I want to be kid-free and I want to be in this red chair in my sunroom and have just a holy little moment. And then I want to take a bath. Does this count?
Yes.
It was like okay, that's self-care. This is what I need in order to set myself up to be the best I can be tomorrow.
Right.
And so I asked my husband, hey, we went on a walk, and I was like, tonight, when we get back, when we do this, I would like to prep for the podcast, and I would like to take a bath. And I would like to do that kid-free. So I'll put one kid down. Could you take the other kid? And he said yes.
All right.
can do that.
Way to go.
Hooray!
I love it. Good. You are an example to all,
Oh,
Jen.
Lord, no.
But it is like, it's stopping to ask yourself those types of questions and taking inventory, right? Of like, look around, but all of this has the theme of you have to stop for one tiny second to take a glimpse into what's going on in my heart, what's going on in my life. Are my kids my identity? Like, what would I do without my kids? We don't, there's no allowing of that from outside influences, from inside influences. That is death by 1,000 cuts. And that is the worst kind of death. And that's the death that we're saying, no. We're saying no to that.
Two things. Number one, when you're talking about asking yourself, what do you want? Like, this almost goes back to our episode about the assertive Bill of Rights of like that I was trying to be aware and voice my needs, right? Of self-care, that's important. You preach on that a lot, right? It's really important. You can't pour from an empty cup, people.
That's right.
But sitting down and saying, what do I want out of this marriage, out of this family, out of this life? What do I want for my career? What are my dreams? I'm like, those, like, my example is just on the surface, but I'm like, what if we asked ourselves those deeper questions of what really do you want? Like, I think that's important to do.
Oh, yeah.
That would help challenge you to veer outside of your motherhood lane for a little bit because it's not your only one. And two, I loved that you were talking about pre-baby, like life before kids. And I also want to add life after kids.
Right.
There will be a life after kids. You're going to raise them up, and then they're going to fly the coop.
Bye.
And then what? If you don't put in the work now, you're going to look at your husband and go, what? Who are you?
Right. And you're going to look at the mirror and go,
Who are you?
Yes.
So I'm like, empty nesting is a real thing that's inevitable.
Right.
Praise the Lord.
And please God. Both.
But seriously, those could be really hard years. You'd have to start at zero, relearning who you are in your identity. Because now that your kids are adults, you can't be that mom who's like, can I come over? Can we just talk multiple times a day, every day? Like, and you have to have your own identity.
Right.
Are you retired? Are you without your career? If you were a stay-at-home mom, now that's gone. So what are you going to do with your time and your purpose? Because you were created on purpose and for a purpose. So I'm like, the before and after is huge. So do it now while you can.
Yeah, do the slow, steady work.
Yes.
And so that's what we want to encourage you on. And it's not this big, like, it's 1,000 cuts, right? It's not one lopping, boom, there goes your arm of selfishness and whatever. Like, it's not that. It's slowly but surely, like every day. And so here, we're going to make this, it's not easy, but it'll sound doable.
Simple.
Yeah. So you just need to listen.
Yeah.
Just stop and listen for 1 second. Like, what are the voices warring in your mind?
Yes.
What are you hearing?
Pay attention.
Listen, pay attention. But in order to do that, you have to create the space. You have to stop down. And that feels hard and impossible sometimes.
Yes.
But we have to be doing that. That's the only way that the work is going to get done.
Yeah, and as you're listening, then number 2 is to discern, because you're like, wait, good cuts, bad cuts, how do I know which is which? How do I tell these voices apart? Once you're listening, try to lean in and discern, okay, is this truth? Is this a lie? Is this going to make me live in the light, or is this darkness?
Yeah.
And find the difference between the two. You have to discern.
Right. Well, and I love that too. It's like, you can say, is this God's voice? Is this the devil's voice? Is this the voice of confusion? Is this the voice of clarity? Is this the voice, like, however,
Condemnation?
conviction, however it makes sense to you. The voice of dark, is this the voice of light? Like, if I choose this, am I going to go to the light, or am I going to go to the darkness?
Yeah.
And so, like, however you need to say it to yourself for it to go, oh, okay, that makes sense. Like, start there, but it's stopping down to listen.
Yeah.
It's trying to discern the voices, name them, and then the last thing is choose. Choose one. And if you're not intentional about choosing the light, the good, whatever, you're automatically choosing the bad.
By default.
Don't let that scare you, because there's plenty of times we do that. And that doesn't always throw us all the way off course. It's not about that. It's about when you're in the moment, making the right choice, listening to the right voice, and then taking action in that. Like, don't be scared of what that good voice of truth is saying to you. Don't be scared of what you look like in the light.
Because we want you to experience freedom.
Yeah.
There's freedom when you're walking in the light.
Oh, yeah. So good. So our encouragement to you, just allow the good cuts, resist the bad cuts, but overall put in the work.
Yeah.
You are worth the work.
Yeah.
Every day, once a week, whatever you can start with. Start small. Don't go nuts, but choose to do the work because you're worth it and because your kids are watching. Your kids are watching you. You can teach them how to do their own work. You can do their work for them on their behalf, but they're going to watch you know how to do your own internal work of growing up. This is like the how to raise a mother, you know?
And they're going to find their own identity when they become parents.
Yes, they're going to figure it out because they've watched you do it in a really healthy way. And if that's not motivating, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Like, you're creating generational change. You're leaving a legacy, no matter what the legacy is. You can leave a legacy of fear, or you can leave a legacy of freedom. So choose freedom and choose to do the work.
Can I read this last line to end us out?
Get it.
Send us
Yes.
out? There is hope in motherhood. I'm like, that's just ringing in my ears. I'm like, oh, that's what you're saying. Like, there's hope. You can do it.
Oh, yeah.
Every sliced grape and every tingling extremity is a sign of your growth, perseverance, and unfathomable love for those kids. And in case no one else tells you today, you're a really good mom.
Thanks for listening to the I Am Mother of the Year podcast with Lisa and Jen. If you love what you hear and want insider access to more conversations just like these, exclusive Mother of the Year merch, and access to the I Am Mother of the Year podcast one day early, join the growing community of patrons who support our movement at patreon.com/I Am Mother of the Year. Talk to you next week.